The sound of the mop sliding across the polished floor echoed in the vast empty hallway. Most people didn't even notice her. To them, she was just the janitor, quiet, unassuming, and invisible. Her uniform, slightly worn at the edges, and the way she moved through the space without drawing attention seemed to confirm that she was someone whose job it was to clean up after others. "Hey, careful not to miss a spot, Miss Cleaner." A young employee smirked as he strolled past with his colleagues, their laughter fading down the hallway. She didn't react, not even a glance their way, as if she'd grown used to the sneers and dismissive remarks. But there was something they didn't know. Behind the calm exterior, the quiet demeanor, and the mop she wielded like a shield, was a truth that would leave them speechless. This janitor knew every corner of the building, not because she cleaned it, but because she designed it. She had sat in the boardroom, making decisions about the future of the company they all worked for. Her name was Olivia Reed, and while most in the building knew her only as the woman in the janitor's closet, her real title was CEO. But Olivia had her reasons for staying in disguise, for walking these halls unnoticed, and for observing the people who worked under her. She wasn't just cleaning floors, she was cleaning house. You see, Olivia had built this company from the ground up. Every brick, every achievement was a testament to her hard work and vision. But as the company grew, so did the gap between its values and the behavior of those who worked within it. Olivia had heard whispers of mistreatment, arrogance, and a growing culture of entitlement. So she decided to do something radical. Disguised as a janitor, she wanted to see how her employees treated the people they believed to be at the bottom. She wanted to know who would pass the test of character where they thought no one important was watching. And as she silently swept the floors and emptied trash cans, she witnessed moments that both broke her heart and fueled her determination. Some employees showed kindness, offering a smile or a simple thank you, but others revealed signs of themselves that Olivia couldn't ignore. One day, while cleaning near the conference room, she overheard a group of executives joking about cutting jobs to save their bonuses. Another time, a junior employee openly complained about how the janitorial staff didn't work fast enough. Every comment, every action, was a piece of the puzzle Olivia was putting together. But what would happen when the truth finally came out? When they realized the quiet janitor was actually the woman who could decide their fate with a single signature. Olivia was determined to find out, and she wasn't going to wait much longer. The late afternoon sun streamed through the large windows of the building, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Olivia paused for a moment, leaning on her mop, watching as employees shuffled back and forth, too busy to notice her. It was exactly what she wanted, to blend in, to be invisible. That was where the truth revealed itself, in the moments when people thought no one important was watching. Olivia wasn't always so quiet. Years ago, she was the one standing at the front of the boardroom, commanding attention as she outlined her vision for the company. She had built it with her bare hands, not just as a business but as a reflection of her beliefs: hard work, fairness, and treating every person with respect, no matter their title. But somewhere along the way, as the company grew and new faces joined, those values had started to erode. The culture she had worked so hard to create was slipping through her fingers. It wasn't an easy decision to step away from the CEO role temporarily, much less disguise herself as a janitor. But Olivia needed to see the truth for herself. Reports and meetings could only tell her so much. What happened when no one thought she was watching? That was the real test. One of the first things she noticed in her new role was how much people revealed through their body language. In the cafeteria, she watched as employees formed their usual cliques, some sharing warm smiles and others huddling together to gossip. She began to pick up on patterns: who avoided eye contact with the janitorial staff, who made an effort to say hello, and who treated her like she didn't exist at all. There was Brandon, a middle manager who strutted through the halls as if he owned the place. Olivia had seen him berate a young intern over a minor mistake, his voice loud enough for the entire floor to hear. She noticed how his tone changed when he spoke to the executives, suddenly dripping with charm and fake laughter. Andon was the type who played the game, but only when it benefited him. Then there was Mia, a junior employee in marketing. Olivia often found her staying late, her desk piled high with papers. Once, Mia had accidentally bumped into Olivia while rushing out of the office. Instead of brushing it off, she'd stopped, apologized sincerely, and even offered to help Olivia pick up the supplies she had dropped. It was a small moment, but it stuck with Olivia. Kindness didn't cost anything, and Mia seemed to understand that. But it wasn't all bad. Olivia did encounter moments of genuine humanity, like when an IT technician named Carlos offered her a coffee during a long shift. "You're here longer than most of us," he joked, handing her a steaming cup. "Figured you could use this." It was the kind of interaction that reminded Olivia why she had built this company in the first place, to create a space where people like Carlos could thrive. Still, for every moment of kindness, there were twice as many that left Olivia questioning the future of her company. She overheard conversations in the break room that made her stomach turn. Jokes about layoffs, dismissive remarks about other departments, and a general lack of empathy for anyone outside their immediate circle. The company she had poured her soul into was starting to feel unrecognizable. One evening, as Olivia mopped the floor outside the executive suite, she caught sight of something that made her stop in her tracks. Through the glass doors, she saw a group of senior executives gathered around a table, their expressions tense. They didn't see her standing there, hidden in the shadows. One of them, a man named Greg, whom Olivia had trusted for years, was gesturing wildly as he spoke. "We need to tighten the budget," Greg said, his voice muffled, but clear enough to make out. "And that means cutting the fat. Do we really need to keep the janitorial staff in-house? Outsourcing would save us thousands." Olivia's grip tightened on the mop handle. It wasn't just the suggestion that bothered her. It was the casual way Greg said it, as if the livelihoods of those employees were nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet. She had hired Greg herself years ago, believing he shared her vision for the company. Now she wasn't so sure. The longer Olivia stayed in her disguise, the more she realized how far things had drifted from her original vision. She began keeping a journal, jotting down everything she observed, every interaction, every comment, every decision that revealed the true character of the people working for her. It wasn't just about exposing the bad apples. It was about understanding the root of the problem. Late one night, after most of the office had emptied out, Olivia found herself sitting alone in the janitor's closet, the small space cluttered with cleaning supplies and the faint smell of disinfectant. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, her face tired but determined. "What happened to us?" she whispered to herself. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the silence. It was a text from her assistant, the only person who knew about her undercover plan. "Any updates?" Olivia hesitated before typing back. "A few more days. I'm not ready yet." She wasn't ready because she hadn't seen everything she needed to see. The truth was still unraveling, and she wanted to be sure she had all the pieces before revealing who she really was. The next morning, Olivia arrived early, before most of the staff had even clocked in. She began her routine as usual, cleaning the hallways and emptying trash bins. But this time, she kept her eyes peeled for one specific thing: integrity. Who among her employees would do the right thing, even when no one was watching? Her patience was about to be tested in ways she couldn't have predicted. As Olivia continued her quiet observations, she uncovered secrets that ran deeper than she ever imagined. Secrets that threatened to tear the company apart. The question wasn't just who she could trust. It was whether she could fix what had gone wrong before it was too late. The days turned into weeks, and Olivia's time undercover only deepened her understanding of the company's inner workings and its fractures. What had once been a thriving, collaborative environment now felt fractured, with cliques forming and hierarchies tightening. The divide between the employees who wielded power and those who felt powerless was wider than Olivia had ever imagined. One morning, while scrubbing a stubborn stain in the lobby, Olivia overheard two employees from the finance department chatting nearby. They spoke in hushed tones, but their words carried the weight of something more serious than office gossip. I'm telling you, those numbers don't add up, one of them said, his voice tight with frustration. If someone audits us, it's not going to look good. You think Greg doesn't know that? The other replied, Of course he knows. He's the one signing off on it. Just keep your head down. You don't want to end up on his bad side. Olivia froze, her hand gripping the mop handle. She didn't look up, didn't give any indication she'd heard them, but inside her mind raced. Greg again. First, his careless remarks about outsourcing the janitorial staff, and now this. It was becoming increasingly clear that he wasn't the man she thought he was. Later that evening, as Olivia cleaned the offices on the upper floors, she noticed a light on in the conference room. Inside, Brandon sat hunched over a laptop, his face illuminated by the screen. Olivia hadn't seen him stay late before, and she couldn't help but wonder what had changed. She quietly moved closer, pretending to mop near the doorway. Brandon sighed heavily, muttering under his breath as he clicked through files. This is a mess, he said, his voice barely audible. If this gets out... He trailed off, shaking his head. Olivia lingered for a moment longer before moving on, her heart pounding. It wasn't just the words that caught her attention. It was the look on his face. Brandon, the arrogant middle manager who always seemed so self-assured, looked genuinely worried. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was one Olivia didn't like. There was something deeper going on, something that went beyond bad attitudes and poor leadership. The next day, Olivia decided to test the waters. During her break, she sat down in the cafeteria, a place she usually avoided to keep her profile low. She chose a table near a group of employees she had been observing for weeks. They were junior staffers, often overlooked, but always working hard. Mind if I sit here? Olivia asked, her voice quiet but steady. One of them, a young woman named Elena, looked up and smiled. Of course. Go ahead. As Olivia sat, she noticed the curious glances exchanged among the group. They weren't used to seeing the janitorial staff join them for lunch. She waited a moment before speaking again. You all seem like a close group, she said, her tone casual. It's nice to see that. Elena nodded. We try to stick together. It's not always easy, though. Some people around here... She hesitated, glancing at her colleagues. You can say it, Olivia encouraged gently. Well, Elena continued, lowering her voice, some people don't make it easy to come to work every day. The way they talk to us, treat us, it's like we don't matter. Especially Brandon and Greg. They only care about impressing the higher-ups. Olivia nodded, her heart sinking. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was still a blow. And there's more, Elena added, leaning in slightly. We think they're hiding something. A couple of us noticed discrepancies in some reports, but when we tried to bring it up, we got shut down. Greg even threatened to write us up if we kept asking questions. Olivia's stomach churned. This wasn't just about poor leadership or a toxic culture. There was a real problem here, one that could have serious consequences for the company, and for the people who worked so hard to keep it running. Over the next few days, Olivia kept a closer eye on Greg and Brandon. She noticed how often they disappeared into closed-door meetings, how they avoided direct answers when questioned by other employees, and how their behavior became increasingly erratic. One evening, as she was finishing up her shift, Olivia found herself near Greg's office. The door was slightly ajar, and inside she could see Greg and Brandon poring over a stack of papers. Their voices were low, but Olivia could hear snippets of their conversation. Can't let this get out, Greg was saying. If the board finds out, we're done. And what about the employees? Brandon asked, his tone unusually nervous. They're already starting to ask questions. Let me handle that, Greg replied. You just make sure the files are locked down. Olivia felt a surge of anger. She had built this company on trust, integrity, and transparency, and now it was being undermined by the very people she had entrusted to lead. But she knew she couldn't act impulsively. She needed more information, more proof of what was happening. And she needed to be strategic about how she revealed the truth. As Olivia walked back to the janitor's closet that night, she made a decision. She would continue observing, gathering evidence, and testing the character of her employees. But when the time came to unveil her true identity, she would make sure it was a moment they would never forget. And when that moment came, there would be no more hiding, no more excuses, and no more room for anything less than the truth. As the days went by, the weight of what Olivia had discovered pressed heavier on her shoulders. Every step she took through the hallways felt charged with tension. The more she watched Greg and Brandon, the clearer it became that they were at the center of something big, something dangerous for the company she had built with her own hands. One evening, after most of the staff had gone home, Olivia saw her opportunity. She noticed Greg leave his office in a rush, his phone pressed tightly to his ear. He left the door slightly open, a rare mistake for someone as careful as him. Olivia glanced around, making sure the hallway was empty. Her heart raced as she quietly slipped into his office. The room was exactly as she remembered it from her time as CEO, sleek, modern, and impersonal. But now it felt like enemy territory. Her eyes scanned the desk, landing on a stack of folders labeled with cryptic titles. She opened one and quickly flipped through the pages. It didn't take long for her to find what she was looking for: financial reports that didn't match the official ones she had reviewed months ago. There were inconsistencies, large amounts of money moving in ways that didn't make sense. And at the bottom of the stack was a signed authorization form with Greg's name on it. Her hands trembled as she took out her phone and snapped pictures of the documents. This was it, proof that something was very wrong. But before she could gather her thoughts, the sound of approaching footsteps made her freeze. Quickly, Olivia returned the folders to their place and ducked behind a cabinet just as Greg entered the office. He muttered something under his breath, sounding frustrated as he rummaged through his desk. Olivia held her breath, praying he wouldn't notice anything out of place. After a few tense moments, Greg grabbed his coat and left, the door slamming shut behind him. Olivia exhaled shakily, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she had taken a huge risk, but it had been worth it. Now she had evidence, and she was one step closer to uncovering the full truth. The next morning, Olivia decided to confide in Mia, the young marketing employee who had shown her kindness. She found Mia in the break room, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. "Mia," Olivia said softly, sitting down across from her. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Mia looked up, surprised. "Of course. What's up?" Olivia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I've noticed some things around here. Things that don't feel right. I think there's something happening in the company that could hurt a lot of people." Mia's expression turned serious. "What kind of things?" "I can't say too much yet," Olivia replied. "But I need your help. You're smart, and you notice things others don't. I think you can help me figure out what's really going on." Mia nodded slowly. "Okay, what do you need me to do?" "Just keep an eye out," Olivia said. "Pay attention to how people act, what they say. And if you see or hear anything unusual, let me know." Mia agreed, and for the next few days, the two of them worked quietly, sharing information and piecing together the puzzle. Mia's insights proved invaluable. She had overheard conversations in meetings and noticed patterns that Olivia hadn't. Together, they began to uncover the full extent of the corruption. But with every step they took, the risks grew higher. Olivia knew it was only a matter of time before Greg or Brandon caught on to her investigation. She could feel the tension in the air, a sense that the walls were closing in. One afternoon, while Olivia was cleaning near the conference room, she overheard Greg and Brandon arguing inside. Their voices were loud, their words sharp. "We need to shut this down now," Greg said, his tone angry. "If anyone else finds out, we're finished." "And what about the janitor?" Brandon replied. "She's always lurking around. What if she's seen something?" Olivia's heart stopped. They were talking about her. Greg scoffed. "She's just a janitor. She doesn't matter. Focus on the real problems." Olivia stepped away from the door, her mind racing. She knew she had to act quickly. The time for quiet observation was over. It was time to bring everything to light. That evening, Olivia returned to the janitor's closet and retrieved the journal where she had documented everything she had seen and heard. She flipped through the pages, her notes a mix of observations, quotes, and dates. This wasn't just a collection of memories, it was evidence. But Olivia knew that revealing the truth wouldn't be easy. She needed a plan, a way to expose Greg and Brandon without putting herself or anyone else in danger. And she needed allies, people within the company who believed in the values she had built it on. As she sat in the quiet of the closet, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Mia. "I overheard something big. Meet me tomorrow morning. We need to talk." Olivia replied with a simple okay, her mind already racing with possibilities. Whatever Mia had discovered, it could be the key to bringing everything to light. But Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Greg and Brandon were desperate, and desperate people made dangerous decisions. She would need to be careful, strategic, and fearless. And above all, she would need to be ready. Because the truth was about to come out, and when it did, nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, Olivia arrived early, her mind still turning over Mia's message from the night before. Whatever Mia had discovered, it felt urgent, and Olivia had a sinking feeling that the stakes were about to get even higher. She found Mia waiting for her in the back corner of the cafeteria, her expression tense. Mia's usual warmth was replaced by a look of unease, and as Olivia approached, she could see the young woman tapping nervously on the table. "Mia," Olivia said quietly, sitting across from her. "What's going on?" Mia leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "I overheard Greg on a call late last night. He was talking to someone outside the company, and it wasn't just about the financial reports." Olivia's stomach dropped. What did he say? Mia hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. He mentioned something about transferring assets offshore. He said they needed to move fast before anyone started asking questions. And then she took a deep breath. "He mentioned your name." Olivia froze. "What exactly did he say about me?" "He called you a problem," Mia replied. "He said you were poking around too much and that it was time to handle you." The words sent a chill down Olivia's spine. She had known Greg and Brandon were hiding something, but this was beyond what she had imagined. They weren't just mismanaging funds or cutting corners. They were involved in something far more serious. Olivia thanked Mia for her courage and reassured her that she wasn't alone in this. But as she left the cafeteria, Olivia couldn't ignore the gnawing fear in her chest. Greg knew she was watching, and now he saw her as a threat. That evening, Olivia returned to the janitor's closet to gather her thoughts. She knew she couldn't wait much longer to act. But just as she opened her journal to review her notes, the door creaked open, and she spun around to see Brandon standing there. "I thought I'd find you here," he said, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. Olivia's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Is there something you need?" Brandon's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Funny thing. You've been cleaning this place for weeks now, but you seem awfully interested in things that don't concern you." "I'm just doing my job," Olivia replied, her voice steady. Brandon's gaze narrowed. "Is that right? Because Greg and I have noticed you've been asking a lot of questions. Sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. You're not as invisible as you think." Olivia said nothing, letting the silence hang in the air. Brandon took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Here's some advice. Keep your head down and do what you're paid to do. Otherwise, things might get difficult for you." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving Olivia alone in the closet. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling. The threat was clear, and it was a reminder that she was playing a dangerous game. But Brandon's visit only strengthened Olivia's resolve. If they were willing to go to such lengths to silence her, it meant they had something big to hide. She wasn't about to back down now. The next day, Olivia made her way to the department. Carlos, the technician who had once offered her coffee, greeted her with a warm smile. "Hey, Olivia," he said, "what brings you here?" "I need a favor. Olivia replied, lowering her voice. And I need you to keep it between us. Carlos raised an eyebrow but nodded. What do you need? I need access to some files, Olivia said. The kind that aren't easy to find. Carlos hesitated. You know I could get in serious trouble for that, right? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, Olivia said. But there's something happening in this company, and if we don't stop it, a lot of people are going to get hurt. Carlos studied her for a moment before sighing. All right, but you owe me an explanation when this is over. Over the next hour, Carlos worked his magic, navigating the company's systems with practiced ease. Olivia stood behind him, her heart pounding as she watched file after file appear on the screen. Finally, Carlos paused. There, he said, pointing to a folder marked with a generic name. That's what you're looking for. It's encrypted, but I can crack it. It took a few more minutes, but when the folder opened, Olivia felt her breath catch. Inside were spreadsheets, emails, and transfer records, all pointing to a massive embezzlement scheme. Greg and Brandon weren't just hiding money. They were stealing it, funneling millions into offshore accounts. But as Olivia scanned the files, her eyes landed on something that made her blood run cold. Among the emails was a message from Greg to an unknown recipient. The subject line read, Contingency Plan. The body of the email was short but chilling. If she gets too close, take care of her. Olivia stared at the screen, the implications sinking in. This wasn't just about money anymore. Her life was in danger. Carlos turned to her, his expression grim. What are you going to do? Olivia straightened, her resolve hardening. I'm going to end this, but I'm going to need your help. As she left the department that night, Olivia knew the game had changed. Greg and Brandon had crossed a line, and now it wasn't just about saving the company. It was about survival. The stage was set for a showdown, and Olivia was ready to face whatever came next.